Hi everyone, my name is Yulia Horiran, this is News Pulse at UATV. Welcome to the daily segment. So today in the episode, Palianytsia jet-powered drones and Neptune missiles successfully hit the naval base in Novorossiysk. The US has sold 2 oil tankers of Russian so-called shadow fleet for scrap. Putin prepares to fight at least until 2028. Zelensky reveals Kremlin plans for mobilization. Ukrainian drones and missiles launched a massive attack on the Russian city of Novorossiysk in Krasnodar region. President Zelensky has confirmed the success of the operation. The attack has been ongoing for more than 5 hours, with air defense systems actively operating in the city, and the mayor has also confirmed the attack. One of the possible targets of the attack could have been the port of Novorossiysk, Russia's largest port and a key export hub on the Black Sea. It is also not ruled out that the strike may have been aimed at disrupting a potential massive launch of cruise missiles from Russian carrier vessels that could have been in the area.
Ukraine's defense forces carried out a unique operation targeting the naval base in Novorossiysk, the last major stronghold of the Russian fleet in the Black Sea, more than 300 kilometers from the front line. Our Palianytsia jet-powered drones, Neptune missiles, and unmanned naval systems successfully struck the designated targets. Hits on air defense positions, piers, and seaport infrastructure have been confirmed. Volodymyr Zelensky, president of Ukraine, on X.
Ukraine is the Silicon Valley of the Western defense sector. British Ambassador to Ukraine, Neil Crompton, stated this in an interview with RBC Ukraine. He emphasized that the Ukrainian defense industry has served as a model for the West, and the West is increasingly adopting Ukraine's wartime experience.
I think the Iran war has underlined, in a sense, that Ukraine is the Silicon Valley of the Western industrial defense sector, and people want to learn. I hear a lot of Western military commanders say, now we need to learn more lessons from Ukraine, and then some people say, well, Ukraine's done amazing things, but we would fight the war a little bit differently. The Ukrainians had to adapt and innovate. But then I think, people would say the Western countries would have air superiority, but we just saw the war against Iran where it was sort of total air superiority from day one. But then everybody picked up the phone around Kyiv and said, can we learn from you? So I think that's an important moment, as you said, and I think, yes, it sort of helped Ukraine suddenly, rather than constantly asking or being seen to ask for more assistance, was making a constructive contribution.
The US has sold 2 oil tankers, the Era and the Leleo, which have ties to Russia and were seized in January during a naval blockade, for scrap. Both vessels were purchased by the Dubai-based recycling company, Global Marketing Systems, for an undisclosed amount. The tankers have now been shipped to the Indian port of Alang, where they will be dismantled. As GMS clarifies, the legal basis for the sale was a corresponding decision by a US court. Russia is preparing a new large-scale mobilization wave this fall. Immediately after the so-called parliamentary elections, the Kremlin plans to quickly conscript several 100,000 Russians into the occupation army, with the same number expected next year. President Volodymyr Zelensky announced this, emphasizing that Ukraine is preparing for this scenario.
Putin's plan is not particularly complicated. He wants to create the impression that Russians supposedly support the war. Every party still permitted to run is, one way or another, against peace. And then, after the so-called elections, he plans an additional rapid mobilization of several 100,000 Russians by the end of the year, plus just as many more next year. This will be on top of the recruitment they are trying to carry out through contract enlistment. We are preparing for our own active operations to make it as difficult as possible for Russia to carry out such plans.
Putin intends to continue the war until at least 2028. This was announced by Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center of Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine. He also noted that all parties in the so-called elections in Russia support continuing the war. Meanwhile, Putin and his entourage are just profiting from the war.
It's important to understand that there are economists in Russia who have access to Putin and oppose ripping men out of the economy and killing them in the war. However, the military, intelligence, some oligarchs profiting from the war, Kiriyenko and Putin himself, unfortunately, want to continue fighting. Andriy Kovalenko, head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, on Telegram.
Russia has changed its tactics. Instead of massive salvos of North Korean missiles, it does single launches. ISW analysts know that Russian forces are now likely using a small number of Kan-23 ballistic missiles in night strike configurations, along with other types of weapons. This is an attempt by the occupiers to test the missiles and improve their accuracy. More in our next story for you.
Russia is increasingly using North Korean ballistic missiles in its war against Ukraine. Overnight on August 11th, Russian forces attacked Zaporizhzhia with Zircon missiles, guided aerial bombs, and North Korean-made ballistic missiles. According to Ukraine's Foreign Intelligence Service, these weapons can deviate from their intended trajectory by up to 15 kilometers. President Volodymyr Zelensky sees Russia's use of North Korean missiles as another sign of further escalation, rather than a move towards peace.
This is the first time in Russia's history that it no longer has a safe strategic rear, and this is the first time it cannot wage war without reinforcements from North Korea. Now they are preparing to deploy an additional Korean contingent on their territory. They have received, imagine this, additional ballistic missiles from North Korea. And everyone in the world needs to understand what this means. It is not only about people's lives in Ukraine. It is not only a threat to us. North Korean ballistic technology is being improved through cooperation with Russia.
As the Ukrainian leader has previously stated, the number of North Korean troops in Russia continues to grow, from hundreds to thousands. The plan is to increase the contingent to between 30,000 and 50,000 personnel. According to a report by the Institute for the Study of War, North Korea has deployed a missile unit to Russia, along with more than 100 ballistic missiles. Analysts say this gives Pyongyang an opportunity to test and improve its missile technology in real combat conditions.
North Korea is not fighting in Russia for no reason. They are taking part in this war, gaining experience, and learning how to conduct it. Even the missiles that are currently striking us are similar to the Iskander-M. They are, of course, being modernized in Russia. And Russia is working on how to improve these modifications. But North Korea will not use these missiles in Ukraine. It will use them on other battlefields where it sees an advantage to pursue its own geopolitical objectives.
Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War say Putin is unlikely to enter serious negotiations as long as Russia can continue using ballistic missiles to strike Ukrainian cities, taking advantage of Ukraine's acute shortage of Patriot interceptor missiles. The Patriot system is considered one of the most effective means of intercepting ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, Robert Madyar Brovdy, commander of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, says Russia plans to increase the number of missiles used in a single massive attack by 2.5 times, to as many as 200. The figure includes not only ballistic missiles, but various other types of missiles as well.
The Kremlin is reportedly planning to launch a large-scale strike campaign against Kyiv's energy infrastructure in the coming weeks, with the aim of disrupting Ukraine's efforts to strengthen energy facilities and taking advantage of the persistent shortage of interceptor missiles in Ukraine. From a publication by the Institute for the Study of War.
Amid the growing threat, President Zelensky said Ukrainian forces would destroy enemy launchers in an effort to reduce the number of ballistic strikes against Ukraine. A meeting of the National Security and Defense Council also discussed the possibility of new operations behind enemy lines, targeting Russian defense industry facilities involved in the production of ballistic missiles. Sanctions imposed by Ukraine's partners are also helping to disrupt Russia's production of weapons. For example, Austria has uncovered a sanctions evasion scheme involving a company based in Vienna. The company was used to procure highly specialized goods for Russia's defense industry, including components for the production of engines for missiles and fighter aircraft.
The missiles striking Ukraine are about 75% made up of electronic components from the United States. The rest comes from Europe and elsewhere. Japan is also among the sources. These supplies have not stopped. They continue to reach Russia through complicated logistical routes. There are various arrangements and agreements involved.
Canada has also imposed sanctions on the defense company Strike Group in recent days. The company produces armored personnel carriers and other military equipment that has repeatedly been spotted in Russia. According to the Canadian authorities, its armored vehicles are being used by Russia's National Guard in the war against Ukraine, reported by Dmytro Shulha, UATV News.
That's it for today. I'm Yulia Horova. Thank you for watching this segment. We appreciate your time and effort a lot. Please also share, comment, subscribe to UATV. We got you covered on whatever tomorrow holds for all of us, always in Ukrainian perspective. Stay safe and see you on tomorrow.